Have you ever smiled while someone completely underestimated you? I did for almost 3 years. My husband loved telling everyone I was nothing without him. His friends laughed, he laughed louder, and I stayed silent. They thought my silence meant agreement. It didn't. It meant I had a plan. By the time moving day arrived, the only person who didn't know his life was about to change forever was the man who believed he controlled mine. My name is Olivia, and when I married Ethan, I believed we were equals. We both had careers, shared dreams, and talked about building a future together. During our first year of marriage, he was supportive and kind. Whenever I succeeded at work, he celebrated with me. Whenever I struggled, he encouraged me. Looking back, I sometimes wonder whether that version of him was real or simply temporary. Everything changed after Ethan received a major promotion. The extra money seemed to change more than our bank account. It changed him. He started introducing me differently. "This is Olivia," he'd tell people. "She works, but I basically take care of everything." Everyone laughed politely. I laughed too. I told myself it was just a joke. Then the jokes became habits. At dinner parties, he interrupted me whenever I answered a question. "If she forgets something, don't worry," he'd grin. "That's why she has me." His friends found him hilarious. I found excuses. "He's just showing off. He's stressed. He doesn't mean it," but deep down I knew better. The criticism slowly followed us home. He questioned every purchase I made. He rolled his eyes whenever I talked about work. When I earned praise from my manager, Ethan shrugged. "They're probably just being nice." One Friday evening, he invited several coworkers over for drinks. I prepared snacks, cleaned the house, and stayed mostly in the kitchen while they talked in the living room. Then I heard my name. One of his coworkers asked, "Does Olivia ever think about starting her own business? She seems talented." Ethan laughed so loudly the entire room joined him. "Olivia?" He shook his head. "She's nothing without me." The room became quiet. He continued, "I pay the bills. I make the important decisions. If I disappeared tomorrow, she'd have no idea how to survive." Someone gave an uncomfortable chuckle. Another quickly changed the subject. I stood behind the kitchen wall holding a serving tray so tightly my fingers hurt. No one knew I'd heard every word. When everyone finally left, Ethan walked into the kitchen smiling. "The party went great." I looked at him calmly. "Did it?" He kissed my forehead. "Why wouldn't it?" Because somewhere between his jokes and his confidence, he'd stopped seeing me as his wife. Instead, he'd started treating me like someone lucky enough to exist in his shadow. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened my laptop. I reviewed my savings. Unlike Ethan believed, I had never stopped managing my own finances. Every raise I'd earned, every freelance design project, every holiday bonus, every tax refund, I'd quietly placed part of it into a separate account. Not because I planned to leave, because my grandmother had once told me something I'd never forgotten. Always keep enough money to make your own choices. For years, I'd treated that advice like an emergency parachute. Now I realized I might actually need it. Over the next 12 months, I accepted additional freelance clients. I worked during lunch breaks, after dinner, on quiet Sunday mornings. My savings grew steadily. Meanwhile, Ethan never noticed. He assumed I spent my evenings watching television while he played online games with his friends. Sometimes, he even joked about it. Life must be easy when someone else handles everything. I simply smiled, because every silent deposit into my account brought me closer to a future where nobody else decided what I was worth. Exactly 1 year after that party, our apartment lease approached its end. Ethan announced we'd move into a larger house. "I've already started looking," he said confidently. I nodded. He never asked what I wanted. He simply assumed I'd follow. He had no idea I'd already signed a lease of my own. Moving day arrived on a bright Saturday morning. Ethan left early to meet the moving company at what he believed would become our new home. Before leaving, he kissed my cheek and said, "Try not to forget anything. I'd have to rescue you again." I smiled. "I'll manage." He laughed as though I'd made a joke. The moment his car disappeared, I called a different moving company. They loaded only the furniture I had purchased myself before our marriage, along with my clothes, books, office equipment, and personal keepsakes. Every receipt had been carefully organized months earlier. I wanted no arguments, no confusion, and no unnecessary drama. By noon, my apartment was nearly empty. I took one last look around. The walls echoed with memories, but none of them made me want to stay. Then I locked the door for the final time. My new apartment wasn't enormous, but it was peaceful. Sunlight poured through wide windows, and the balcony overlooked a small park filled with children laughing and dogs chasing tennis balls. For the first time in years, silence felt comforting instead of lonely. As I unpacked my coffee maker, my phone rang.
Ethan.
I answered. "Where are you?" he demanded. "Moving." "I know you're moving. The movers are here." "So are mine." A long silence followed. "What are you talking about?" "I signed a lease." "You what?" "I have my own place." His voice hardened. "Stop joking." "I'm not." Another long pause. "You can't afford your own apartment." "I've been saving." "Since when?" "Long enough." His breathing became heavier. "You belong with me." I looked around my new living room.
No.
I belonged to myself first. He hung up. Within minutes, messages poured in from his family and mutual friends. Some begged me to reconsider. Others insisted marriage required compromise. Only one message mattered. It came from my older sister. "I'm proud of you. Call if you need anything." I smiled through unexpected tears. Sometimes support arrives quietly, exactly when you need it. The following week, Ethan appeared outside my office. He held flowers. "I made mistakes," he admitted. "I know. I never thought you'd actually leave." "I know. I was just joking." I looked directly into his eyes. The problem wasn't the jokes. He frowned. "It was that you believed them." His shoulders dropped. "I can change." "I hope you do. For us. For yourself." He stared at the flowers before quietly placing them on a nearby bench. "I really thought you needed me." I shook my head gently. "You confuse dependence with love." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I wished him well and walked back inside. Life became surprisingly simple afterward. Without constant criticism, my confidence returned faster than I expected. I volunteered for bigger projects at work. My manager noticed. 3 months later, I received a promotion leading an entire creative team. Ironically, the raise made my income nearly equal to Ethan's. The difference was that nobody could use it to measure my worth. One evening, while organizing old files, I found the notebook where I'd tracked every secret deposit into my savings account. The first entry was only $50. The last one was several thousand. Each number represented something much bigger than money. Patience. Preparation.
Belief.
Those quiet choices had built more than an escape plan. They had rebuilt me. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that Ethan had finally admitted why our marriage ended. Not because I abandoned him, because he spent too long believing respect was optional. That surprised everyone who knew him. It surprised me too. People often ask whether leaving was frightening. Of course it was. Starting over always is. But fear fades much faster than regret. If I had stayed, I would have spent years trying to convince someone else of my value. Instead, I chose to remember it myself. Sometimes the strongest response to disrespect isn't an argument. It's action. Ethan spent years telling people I was nothing without him. I never corrected him. I simply kept working, kept saving, kept planning. Then, on moving day, I let reality answer for me. The funniest part is that I never wanted revenge. I wanted peace. And peace turned out to be far more satisfying than proving anyone wrong. Today, every morning begins with coffee on my balcony and gratitude for the woman who quietly believed in herself when almost nobody else did. She never needed permission to leave. She only needed the courage to open the right door. And once she did, she never looked back.